ways. So
Just people's hearts.
what's that? But it may make it worse. I don't know.
Just steal people's hearts. That's all. That's all I steal is
Oh,
people's hearts.
Kalima. I think actually getting to the core of your, like the theme of your show, your series, that you can say that religion is obviously something that's, or whatever it is, that impulse, right, to search for a much higher being. I mean,
Right.
that's interesting that we even do that. I mean, you could say, well, it's just a simple projection of when we were children, but whatever. I mean, that could also have gone away when you grow up. You're just like, oh, I get it. But this is a huge thing, right? Going all the way back to, in other words, we can say, I think that Neanderthals and all of those early pre-human species, they would do things like bury the dead and have rituals. They had no idea what they were doing, let's say, right? So it's clearly important. So it could be that I just saw 2001 again recently. And
God, great.
there was a 50th anniversary tour that the film went on in IMAX. Christopher Nolan restored the film. Anyway, it was incredible. It was the best screening I've ever seen in IMAX. So there's a little bit of a story there, slight spoiler, but is that what the aliens are most interested in is our evolution, and they do that by putting out little markers, these monoliths. They put one on the moon because they want to know when we've reached that level of advancement, that we can do space travel and also find something that's buried, right? I think it could be that the designers of this simulation that we're living in, the goal is, what they're waiting to see is, will we advance so far that we find them?
Yes,
That's
like a scavenger hunt
That's
almost.
the end of the game.
Like a long-term scavenger hunt.
Yeah, or just growing, enlighten, becoming, because when we go into a whole new level of achievement, like Arthur C. Clarke said, it's indistinguishable from magic. So there's so many levels of that for us.
Are we fortunate to be toward the end of this? Are we, like, first of all, are we nearing the end of a simulation? I mean, are we fortunate to be at the position in time that's unique in the history of people, where we can become self-aware of the simulation theory, because our predecessors would have no idea, right? Hell, they didn't even know what a computer was until like the late 60s or something, right? Maybe an analog computer, but well, I mean, they had 50s, I guess they had. But for the most part, I mean, most of humanity didn't have computers, so they wouldn't even know what a simulation would be.
But I think every generation would say that, though. Every generation would say, if you ask them that question, that yes, we are the pinnacle of. We're lucky to be in this time, basically. If you go back, I don't care how many years, they're always advancing. There was never a time where it. I know some people think that the Dark Ages, they kind of came back a little bit, but as far as noticeable steps backward, I think everybody would say that this time we're living in the best time technologically, because if you don't have a computer, you don't have a concept of it, so you don't know what you're missing.
Right. I think maybe then I was about to say that I feel like we are living at a boss level, which global warming.
Oh yeah,
it's like a major thing, right? You to advance to the next level, you got to get through this enormous thing, and maybe the world wars were a previous boss level or something. But it could be just that each generation has this major thing that they there's all the different things they could deal with, but basically, you take on. It's a little bit. This simulation is a little bit like what's the famous series of games where you can go on any quest. There's many quests. You don't have to go on a linear.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah, Oregon Trail. There's one with lights. It's a fun that takes place.
I hated that game because everybody always died of dysentery, no matter what the hell you did.
That's right.
Died of dysentery.
That's right.
Damn programmers were malicious.
Yeah,
that's a harsh game for a kid, man. You're like, why are they all dying? Why are these people dying?
Yeah. Right. Who designed that? Sickos.
Psychopath. I can't think of the game that you're talking about. I'm not a big gamer, so Steve might be able to figure it out. Steve, what's
my
the
friends
game?
who know games will be disappointed.
What game are you trying to think of?
It's a huge series of games, but you're in the mountains and you ride around and you learn. You meet up with different characters. You learn spells. You gain new skills.
That sounds like every MMO there is. Are you talking about Rust?
Right.
Rift, World of
starts
Warcraft,
with an
Mario,
S,
Super Mario,
Skyrim.
Skyrim.
Okay, well that's Neverwinter Nights. Yeah, that's the Elder series. That was the
Elder
installment.
That's it.
The Elder Scrolls. But the third installment was my favorite, Morrowind. If you guys have, telling you people out there, if you haven't played Morrowind, it's old school, but it is one of the best games ever, especially for its time. I didn't like Oblivion too much, but yeah, no, I'm definitely, those are great games.
Yes, yeah. But
we're nerding out here.
You have all these different quests that you don't have to go on. So each generation, there are all these different quests, or frankly, each character, but like there's all these different quests you can go on. But as a whole, we are advancing in one quest, and I believe that is towards just discovering the design.
What if our simulation is to find out how we respond to global warming, or if it can be fixed, if the things that we do could, because remember, one of the boss levels that you were talking about could have been the first ice age. Remember how the population got down to scary small numbers during that ice age, and if it weren't for those groups of people that migrated during that particular time, we wouldn't be here. So maybe that's they're trying to see things like that, how humanity responds to cataclysmic events.
There's something I heard recently.
I have a minor correction. I have a minor correction because I hate to get things wrong. I said Elder Scrolls. I didn't mean that. I know Elder Scrolls. I said Neverwinter Nights. That's Forgotten Realms series. It's Elder Scrolls. So Elder Scrolls was a series for Oblivion, Morrowind, and Skyrim, and then Forgotten Realms has the Neverwinter Nights series, which I also play as well. So that's why I kind of conflated them. People in the audience caught it, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I was like, who gives a shit? Why do people play these games? They're fun. They're fun.
Oh yeah, they're super fun.
When you have time for them, I don't play very often.
Right. In fact, I don't play so much because they're so engrossing. You get sucked in. But I heard some crazy statistic, and I think this is right. I heard this very recently that we are. It was a question of. Oh, actually, there's a great podcast called Big Picture Science with Seth Shostak from the SETI Institute. And it's a fantastic show. It's not just about SETI. It's about all different kinds of science. And actually, their most recent episode was about DNA and things like that. And they said, if I heard this correctly, that we are all descended from one woman 7,000 years ago. So that there have been plenty of people before that. But that for whatever reason, as this things shook out, we actually are. This one woman happened to have the offspring that grew to us. Whatever it is, we certainly go back to, we go back to, or Eve, right? And I think that it could be that when you talked about those extinction moments, there might have been a respawn there, right? Maybe everybody died. And so you got one life. Like, that one woman was a respawn. Or a free life. Extra life.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
My mind is broken now. I can't, it's going in like 9,000 directions. I don't see how you do this, like frequently for your podcast. Some things you just, to me, some things, when you think about them, there's so many rabbit holes to them, and you can go down like tonight we've shown. There are endless paths you can take to get you to a different conclusion. Are we in a simulation? Are we not? If we are the game designers even aware that we are? Or are we some byproduct of the elements that they put inside the game, and they have no clue that we even evolved or even doing anything right now? Maybe they're focused on a completely different galaxy. We just happen to be some side galaxy that they're not even aware exists, because it's just a small little speck on their big game board. Well, that would be bizarre.
Look at the galaxy Andromeda, right? Clearly, Andromeda is very closely related to our galaxy. They're very similar. In fact, they're on a collision course, and billions of years from now, they're going to meet up and stuff. Would you not think that right now? I mean, forget the time stuff, but I mean, right now, in proper time, there's a civilization you think that would be in Andromeda somewhere, just like us. I mean, the probability is overwhelming. Would you not agree? Is that simulation the same for both of us? So the universe is like the entire simulation, and they're unaware of our existence. We're unaware of theirs. We could probably never detect them because by the time we would ever get something from them, they've already ceased to exist. That's the problem with the distances and civilizations.
I think the universe is, in that analogy, is the universe is a giant video arcade, and the Milky Way is one console, and the Andromeda is another one, and all these people are playing all these different ones.
That's bizarre to think about. That's wild to think about. And what happens when we link up, if we link up with a society that's outside of our own, with a different species that's outside of our concept of reality?
Well, actually, so in Myst and in similar puzzle adventure games, when you solve a major complex problem, you get an enormous amount of information, right? Sometimes a video plays. In 2001, the same kind of thing happens, right? All of a sudden, he's almost killed. The astronaut's almost killed. I'm trying not to be spoilery, but he barely survives, and then this video comes on, and he gets an info dump. And then a whole new world opens up. So I think when we meet other people, we'll be able to trade our experiences of the simulation, and that will give us an enormous amount of knowledge about, those two things combined to be like, the two pieces of the puzzle will come together.
My question is, though, the only way that I know this is not a real thing is because no matter what, at some point, somebody loses power. And over the millions of years, they would have lost power to this this simulation by now.
Well, I don't remember who I was talking to the other day, but maybe it was you, I think. Yeah, Kyle. Did we mention that if this was a simulation, there would have to be some kind of Dyson sphere around some kind of other star to even power something like that. But then you're dealing with another type of universe where the rules are completely different, so there wouldn't even be a Dyson sphere, so you wouldn't even have fusion, you wouldn't have a sun. What the hell you have in the base reality? What do you have in the naive realism? It just, the whole thing of the simulation series just seems to be like a bunch of those nested eggs from like the Russia eggs, right? What do they call those? That's sort of the K. I don't speak Russian, but it's the nested little eggs, right? So it just seems like you just go back into an infinite regress of some kind.
But you know what? Here's an interesting thing. That's actually what's really going on, right? The fact that we have no idea what's going on, and is there an outside? Is there not? Is the same question as the simulation question. The simulation question is just sort of like
brought it back,
a model for it. Now, it's interesting. You asked, how do we survive this in playing with the if? How do we keep our minds from turning into soup? One thing is that just tweak this question a little bit and leave this as sort of thoughts for the viewers to take on further, and you guys to take on further if you want. In what the if we say, it wouldn't be we wouldn't say, are we in a simulation? That is not exactly the what the if thing. That's sort of a conceptual question or whatever. What the if is still, we're in a simulation, or, for instance, let's make a simulation that does it. So let's say that now, having decided that, I think one of the possibilities is that if we are in a simulation, the goal is for us to eventually figure out who is running it. Think about playing The Sims, and you can code, right? You're coding the game. The guys who worked at Maxis or whatever were coding the game, The Sims, having the goal, or let's say it's you, I want to keep programming The Sims, and my goal is to make those players aware of me. How do you do that? That's what they have.
Give them your address or your phone number.
You know what? You would have to put in Easter eggs, I think.
Oh,
well, that's a good way of doing it. I mean, if you ever watched the movie Ready Player One, they go back to an Easter egg, which many of us would remember because we've played it. I mean, we've done this on original Atari. The first Easter egg was that little pixel in that Dragon Crawl game. You had to go find it and bring it back to the room. Adventure. And then you had you would see the programmer's name, and it did work. I mean, we've all done that back in the day. This was like, oh my God, early 80s, I guess. Possibly in late 70s. I had to be the early 80s, I guess. But I mean, if I'm going to call it God this time, or the programmer left some kind of Easter egg for us to find, that'd be kind of cool.
Well, here's the thing: we have
Easter. Hit up, up, down, down, left, right, up, and see what happens.